So last week, we had emailed these commands to everybody. Yes?
I was looking for that, yeah.
I'm curious to know if the email included the rest of this.
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
But did the email I sent last week include the highlighted content?
Yeah.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And I think we were in the process of issuing the netsh firewall commands, and there were a couple that didn't work. And I noticed that also in my case. I wanted to clarify that in my situation, I went ahead with this process, and a couple of them did not. One of our students discovered a related command that set the stage for, I think it was this first one. So we ran into a snag, and I had previously issued a command on my system, so I didn't see the same error. But all of you were seeing an error about this very next role, or was it file and print sharing?
No, it was the first one for me.
That was remote, yeah. So there was the related rule. If the related rule is executed first, then this next one will go. And I think in my previous research, I had done that on my system, which is why I didn't get that error. There was another one further down that was a problem, but I want to say it has to do with volume management or event something. It's not a critical firewall rule, and I don't think it would come into play very often. But what I want to do now is set up this record of hosts so that you can use the VM server name in commands. And this is a really cool, and most people don't know about this, but this is good in cybersecurity. This is also good for enforcing resource lookup on a specific network address. How many of you have heard of the hosts file on a system?
Sorry, I'll say that again.
How many of you have heard of the hosts file on your system?
No, I can't say that I have.
Okay, so here's something really cool that you see on your network properties, and I'm curious to know if Robert has ever seen a reference to this before. Because Robert, you've been around a bit, right? You're working in the arena right now, is that correct?
Not quite.
A little bit though.
Yeah.
A little bit. Okay, so here we have Ethernet and Wi-Fi, right? And everybody see this, has anybody ever been inside the advanced properties? Right here?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you see that I have my IP address hard-coded to Cloudflare 1.1.1.1. It's supposed to be a faster, higher performing DNS service than Google, which is 8.8.8.8. Many people leave their DNS on automatic, and the DHCP server simply assigns the same DNS address as the gateway that's automatically assigned. So if somebody needs DNS and your Wi-Fi router is giving them an automatic address, it basically says, yeah, go to the Wi-Fi router. And where does the Wi-Fi router get it from? Your internet service provider. And if your internet service provider has a DNS server that dies, or it's not that responsive, then you have poor internet performance, right? So I just thought I would mention what's going on here. But if you go into advanced, under the WinS tab, it's considered a best practice for every operating system deployment to disable NetBIOS over TCP/IP. Never allow NetBIOS over TCP/IP. NetBIOS is part of an older network protocol where computer names were associated with local area network addresses, but not IP addresses. And then over time, they straddled NetBIOS and the WinS, its Windows naming system. It was a legacy version of DNS before DNS was common. So WinS is ancient and it's chock full of vulnerabilities and exposures. So the first thing I would tell you on this tab is that when it comes to Windows deployment, you should always disable so I'm going to put that here. Note, always disable NetBIOS over TCP/IP. Okay.
Professor Kentop, in my settings, I see it has like the NetBIOS name, but I don't really see an option to enable or disable anything. I'm not sure if I'm in the right part or.
All right. I'm glad you asked that. And what you're going to look for is the WinS option, if there is such a thing. Do you?
Yeah.
You see an
I'm
option?
in that tab. I'm in that tab right now.
Okay. And you saying you don't see it at all?
I see it has a it says NetBIOS name. Then it has the NetBIOS name, which is the name of my computer.
Right.
The only option it's giving me is to add and remove Win servers.
Okay. So that's a great, can we share your screen real quick?
Sure.
Okay. And I'm glad you're sharing. Whenever you have stuff like this in the Mac world or in a Linux environment, and you want to ask questions about how does this work in Linux or in a Mac? I'm all for bringing this up. Okay. So here's the thing. The previous screen that you saw on my system had to do with the TCP/IP protocol because NetBIOS was layered or bound. It's called binding. It's bound to the TCP/IP protocol. In this context, WinS is associated with old school LAN manager and workgroup conventions. And yes, NetBIOS is the protocol that identifies a name for a system with a given address. But that particular feature of NetBIOS over TCP/IP, so what are we saying? We're saying on this screen, it has to do with the WinS servers and the workgroup name. We've explained that most, when you install the operating system, the default workgroup is, what's it called? Workgroup, right? And for Macs, what's the default workgroup called? Workgroup. So that everybody that's operating on the same Wi-Fi network is part of the same work group, which means that they can probably share printers and share music and streaming media and stuff like that. So this is one of those holdovers from earlier networking days. And this has to do with the naming part of it and the WinS server if you had one running. I think our campus has a WinS server running because it's that old. But most implementations of WinS have been deprecated, meaning retired with prejudice, taken out to the back and shot in the head. Not just retired or disabled. I mean like summarily executed, deliberately and intentionally and repeatedly to make sure it never comes back, because it's that bad. Milan, can you click on the TCP/IP option and let's see if there's an additional option there. And I don't see any, right? So there's nothing that talks about NetBIOS over TCP/IP. So I'm guessing that Macs allowed you to work with work groups, old school work groups, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But the Mac support said, hey, this NetBIOS over TCP/IP, it's bad. It's bad mojo, take it out, right? And that's why they've removed it. It's not even an option here for you to disable it or enable it. It's a non-issue. They don't even do it. If we run, so we can run a scan on ports and find out that 139 is not turned on in your case. And that would be a definitive 135 to 139 are ports that open, and those are bad. Those are bad exposures on a network. So TCP port, if we ran like a GRC shields up openly on the internet with your Mac, we'd probably find that 139 wasn't open. The 802.1x tab is really interesting. Can you click on that?
Sure.
Okay. So this is a kind of like two-factor authentication. It's where you're identifying there's centralized management of client identification and validation with certificates, right? With encrypted certificates. 802.1x. This means you can add Macs to Active Directory domains in corporate environments. A lot of people say, well, you can't use Macs in a corporate environment. That's not so. This is all built in right here. So I'm excited to see this this piece of the networking resources on your system, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. So remember, for Macs, the only thing you'd worry about with WinS is whether or not you need to change the name of the workgroup from the default name workgroup. For security reasons, it's not recommended. Did I or did I not show you on my system, and please tell me if I did or not, in my system that I changed the name of my default workgroup for security purposes?
I'm not sure if you did. I don't remember, honestly.
Did I see how mine is? All right, so I have a ThinkPad, a Lenovo ThinkPad.
Should I stop sharing now?
Yes, you can. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Stop sharing. So does anyone recall that we talked about the name of the computer and how you want to change the default name and the default workgroup?
Yeah.
I may have mentioned it, and I may have brought it up in CSC 235 briefly. I may have mentioned it in other classes, but basically the default that the full computer name when you install is usually some gibberish. It's some cryptic name, and then the default workgroup is workgroup. So when you're working with your core installation, when you look at your computer name, it's going to be some gibberish, and it's going to be it's going to be workgroup. And actually, let's do this now. If you have not yet changed the name, and if you haven't changed the name of your system yet, and the workgroup from the default, that's something we ought to do right this second, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do that. We'll start our VirtualBox up, and I'll start my server core, and I'll get this thing running. You're going to want to do this too. You're going to want to get your server core running on your laptop. So the next few minutes, when we do the rest of the commands, you can validate that these things are working, okay? Yeah, I thought, oh, my bad. I started Kali. I meant to start this one. Let's get this one going. I'll get the other one put down. we'll just minimize this for now. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So once again, you want to start your own server core. And in just a moment, when you log in, we'll follow up with this. So we're talking about automating automating installation and configuration. One of the things you want to do is before you set up roles or otherwise manage a new system. So notice the keyword there is capitalized, right? When I say establish, I mean come up with a name that's permanent, unchanging, and a workgroup or domain, right? And I'm going to say if a workgroup change from workgroup, it's a sitting duck in terms of security principles, right? Everybody's always on workgroup, and if you're just connected to a local environment and there are other machines in the area, you're going to have rights and privileges on those just because they're also a part of the workgroup called workgroup. It's bad. It's bad, and not just a little bit. Any questions about that guidance?
No, sir.
Okay, so here you see my system, and I'm going to type in sconfig. And let me see if I can make this a little bigger, just so we can see it a little easier. And let's make the color, would yellow pop a little better maybe? Oh, not the background. And the screen text would be yellow. There we go. Is that easier to see?
Yep.
Okay. Can everybody see my computer name here?
Yes.
And can everybody see the domain or workgroup name has been changed from workgroup to something else, like VI SERP? That's underscore. You can't use spaces in the name. In a name or a workgroup name, you cannot use spaces. You have to put a character in there. It's common to use a dash or an underscore. Sometimes WinS or LAN Manager, they don't like dashes, so it's more common to see underscores. You'll notice also that configure remote management is enabled. So that helps with some of the firewall rules when you turn that on. Instead of using PowerShell commands for setting up your additional accounts like we did, you actually have an option to work this, right? But in here in network settings, one of the things that we want to understand is the local IP address. So if you have not yet done so and set up a separate name, and I'm just going to use std srv1, so standard server 1. If you haven't set up a different workgroup name and a computer name, I want you to do that now. Select option 2, give your system a name. It'll prompt you to reboot. Tell it you'll reboot in a second. Then select 1 and select W for workgroup and change workgroup to something else. which you're going to want to make the same for your laptop, because the network environment for this virtual machine is the same as the network environment for my host machine, my laptop here. I'm still sharing my screen, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I go into 8 and I go into network settings, it gives me my IP address. It tells me what was automatically assigned for my network adapter. And I can put in index number 1 just to see more information about this. So I can do this. And this is how I get to the same information that I had on the graphical side of things for my laptop when I pulled this stuff up, right? So that's how I get to the stuff in server. And here it says clear DNS server settings. So I can, you see the preferred DNS server is what? Same as my gateway. So my core server is basically looking for the same DNS server that it's using to get out on the internet, the wireless router. And then when it hits the wireless router for DNS stuff, it's going to ask my wireless router, okay, how do I get to Google? How do I get to these updates? How do I get to whatever? I can change my preferred DNS server to 1.1.1.1 and I might see better performance. But whenever I'm looking for names, what's going to happen is that DNS is going to point to Cloudflare, and Cloudflare or Google or other DNS servers out on the internet know nothing about my local network. They don't know the first thing. And that's part of the problem, is that when you're networking and you're trying to manage clients efficiently, the first thing they're going to start looking for is out on the network. And that's a problem. The other thing you're going to notice here is that it's got a IPv6 address that's turned on, and we don't necessarily want IPv6 enabled because it can do weird things where it's trying to network and it looks to the IPv6 before it looks to the standard internet address. So what to do about this, right? If I go to set the network adapter address, there may be an option to disable IPv6. To set the DNS server, I can set it to 1.1.1.1. I'm going to suggest that you leave this the way it is right now. The thing that I want you to understand is that oftentimes you're going to have a lot of things not work because of these settings, in particular the gateway and the DNS server addresses. And one convenient workaround for this, the other thing is that a lot of commands may not allow you to use an address directly. We know that the address for this is 192.168.1.116. So when I try to manage it remotely using my RSAT tools, if I go to my server manager and I want to go ahead and turn that up, I'm going to put in that IP address, but a lot of times when I'm trying to do things, it's going to work with DNS. So how do I make server standard 1 automatic where DNS isn't even needed? And the answer is the hosts file. In my configuration here, we were talking about disabling NetBIOS over TCP/IP, and we got a little sidetracked. But everybody see this right here? Enable LM hosts lookup. Okay, so there's a file that's called the LM hosts lookup. And if you click to enable the LM hosts, right, we're talking about LAN manager hosts. Basically what you're saying is yeah, I want to make use of hosts. It's considered best practices. It's considered a best practice to leave this unchecked because there's actually 2 kinds of files, one called LM hosts and one that's just plain hosts. We're going to be talking about just plain hosts, but I want you to be aware that there's a second file called LM hosts where you can do this, and that can be a hack if that's checked. What do we do here to get to it? inside your Windows directory, can everybody see my screen? Is that big enough?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my Windows directory. There is a folder called System32. That's often called the sysvol, or the system volume. It's where the operating system is stored. So a lot of times you'll see environment variable references for sysvol, and what they're talking about in most cases is Windows System32. More specifically, it's C:\Windows\System32, right? And then there's a folder called etc, or actually drivers. So this is very counterintuitive. You won't see etc here, but you'll see drivers. And then when you double click, inside there's a folder called etc for etc. And inside here is hosts and LM hosts and hosts ICS and networks and protocol and services. There's these extra files. In this particular case, the hosts file works with your network driver to fill in the blanks when DNS is not available. So you want to use a name, a host name. You want your remote management tools to connect to standard server 1. You don't want to have to remember the IP address all the time. So what you want to do is edit this file. There's a trick though. Oftentimes you have to edit this running Notepad in administrator mode. What am I saying? If you try to make a change to this, if I open this up and I say, okay, I'm going to use Notepad, and I want to put something in here, you see that I already did this. But if I try to make this change just by doing it right here and now, it won't save. It'll prompt me to save as. It'll say, hey, there's a problem here. And what I did was I put in standard server 1 with the address of standard server 1 so that on my RSAT, when I'm doing things in PowerShell, I can use the PowerShell command for stdsrv1 instead of having to look up the IP address for that command, right? That's what DNS does. We don't want to have to remember the IP addresses for Google. We just go to Google, right? And if you're going to be automating the management of your system setup and configuration, your tools, you want to make using your tools easy. So this is kind of like a first step for configuration. So what you're going to do is you're going to open up and find Notepad, and if you don't have it on your start menu, just type Notepad, and please do that with me now if you would. And you want to right click it and run as admin. And I'm actually going to close this other, no, I actually did close the other one. Never mind. So now it's open. I'm going to go to File and Open. And actually, you can see up here, I have all the stuff I need to get into this directory so I can see this. So here's a nice little trick. I can click, I can right click and copy, and then I can go into here, and I can go up to here and paste. And you see there's nothing in there. But if I hit all files instead of text files, now I see hosts. And I'm going to open up hosts, and now I can make changes. Your version of hosts will not include this line, but I want you to insert this line right now in your hosts. Right now in your hosts. And we're gonna stop and take turns. You're gonna share screens, and you're not gonna put in 116, and you're not gonna put in standard server 1. You're gonna put in the name you gave your server, and you're going to look up the IP address that's assigned to your server, and that's what you're gonna put in this hosts file. You're gonna save it at that point, and then you're gonna do something really cool. You're gonna open up command prompt and run it as administrator. And you're going to do ipconfig space / flush DNS. So you're going to flush the DNS cache that's in your system that's already there. And that's going to clear out any previous entries that may have been stored by DNS. And then I want you to do this. I want you to ping the name of your server, std srv1. Now, the moment I issue this network command, before it does anything with DNS, it's going to go to the hosts file. So what am I saying? Well, this is a great way to hack a system too, unfortunately. What do I mean?
Tell 'em.
What's the IP address of the UVI website?
I'm not sure. Can you ping it?
That's a great question. Okay, so I'm going to ping www.uvi.edu. Oh yeah. So everybody see 216.54. Now the problem is that that's a hosted website, and it's a multi-tenant hosted website. So if I use this to connect to I'd much rather ping Google, I think, right? Because if I take this and I copy it, and I just did that, and I go to a web browser and I try to paste that into the web browser, I should be able to go to the UVI website, but because the UVI website is hosted on something like GoDaddy or Rackspace, or it's hosted in the cloud, it's not going to let me do that. Let's ping Google instead. Let me see if that's something I can do. We'll just do google.com. Because Google has sites here, and I'm going to try to access Google by just using the IP address. So I'm going to copy that and go up here, paste this, and hit enter, and it should take me to Google. Does everybody see what happened there?
Yeah.
I want to try one more. Sears. Everybody with me?
Yep.
Sears.com. Okay, so here's an address for Sears.com, and as long as Sears is not hosted on a multi-tenant website, see, big companies are going to have their own web servers. They're not going to share their website with 5,000 other websites on a big web server. They're just not going to do that. Everybody follow me, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to paste this new thing here, and I want to see if it, oh, it doesn't return Sears. Well, that's weird. We got to find one. We got to find another website that isn't multi-tenant. Let's. What do we try? VI Consortium.
Try eBay or Amazon.
Oh, that's a great idea, because they're about as big as Google. Amazon, yeah. All right, so let's try this, because I want to get an Amazon prompt. I want to get an Amazon screen when I put this up here. I want to do this. I paste this in here. I'm going to proceed to 103. It's not safe. Well, that's strange. That might be like to Amazon AWS services. Not sure I want that. Let's try vi.gov. How's that? Whoops. How about www.vi.gov? Oh no, that's a multi-tenant site too. VI Consortium. I'll tell you what. We'll just work with Google, okay? That's what we'll do. We'll just demonstrate my point with Google. You said eBay, right? Let's try eBay one more time. All right, let's see if this will give us eBay. I come up here. Everybody understand what I'm doing?
Yeah.
So instead of using the name, I'm just, oh, that's good. Okay, so that gives us, so there's eBay and there's Google, right? Everybody sees that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I just used their IP addresses directly to get to those websites. I did not type in google.com or ebay.com. I'm going to go into here. And I'm going to pull a switcheroo. Instead of using a server name, I'm going to use the whole fully qualified host name. So I'm going to say, right, I'm going to put a tab in there, and I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to say, this is my eBay address, right? Everybody with me?
Yep.
I'm going to pull a switcheroo. Instead, I'm going to make this Google. You follow me?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to go to my Google, and what am I going to make that?
eBay.
Yeah, exactly. eBay, right? Okay, I'm going to save this. Then I'm going to do this. I'm going to flush my DNS. And I'm going to do this. Right? I'm going to open my browser fresh. So what do you think happens when I put in Google? Oh, yeah, that's not supposed to happen. Hold on. Let me do this again. I'm going to clear all browsing data from the beginning of time. These are cached entries. I'm going to clear all my browsing data. I'm going to do the same thing for Edge. So I'm going to go into Edge, and I'm going to go into Settings, and I'm going to clear all my browsing data. And then I'm going to clear, let's see, import browser data. I don't want to import. I want to clear. Where's my clearing option here? Reset settings. Okay. To default values, reset. That's what I do in Edge to clear my stuff. What about cookies and site permissions? Manage, delete cookies, all sites. I want to clear my stuff. Clear on exit, right? Anyway, the point is I want to make sure I don't have stuff in the browser that's going to redirect me. I want to ping google.com. In fact, I'm gonna close this browser just in case there's stuff stored in RAM memory right now. And I'll actually go into Firefox, and it goes to Google by default. And Google is the default search engine, so that might be tainting some of my results. But I'm going to go ahead and open this up again. And I'm going to ping Google. Well, that's different. Look at what it showed for my address.
You switch them?
I switched them. This is the Google address. This is the eBay address. Remember what I did?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ping eBay now. Oh yeah, it responds just like Google did. So I can ping Google, but I can't ping eBay normally, right? What are we saying? I'm saying that your system is going to look at the hosts file. And this is also true on a Mac. You just have to work on it on a terminal level. So you gotta get into terminal, and then you gotta edit the hosts file, and you can put in a specific entry for a specific thing. Do we want to use this feature to hack systems, or do we want to use this feature to make sure that whenever you type in your host name for the server, that it's always going to go to the right place no matter what somebody hacks? You're going to want to set this up so that you can use the name instead of the address to make it easy, but you also want to set this up so that even if somebody hacks your DNS, they can't redirect your screens to their system and capture your login with a fake screen. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Yep.
Okay, I should probably give you a little history there. How many of you have ever seen Rush Hour with Chris?
Yeah.
With Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan? You know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Okay, so in the first movie, Chris Tucker's trying to understand Jackie Chan, and Jackie Chan has a thick Chinese accent, right? And at some point he gets frustrated. He's like, "Hey, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?" And Chris Tucker goes, "Ain't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth." And the point is that every now and then I want to check to make sure people are following what I'm getting here. I'm going to modify this because I don't want to go to the wrong website. Let me see if it works on the browser level now, because I want to be sure at some point. Of course, I'm using the Chrome browser, and the Chrome browser might not be hackable because the default browsing engine, the default search engine is Google for the Chrome browser, so it's kind of hardwired in there. But what I'd like to do is go to this and see, now when I do a search for a specific website, that request is sent out to Microsoft and it's pre-filtered. So it's a proxy. So it may not work here, but let's see if I can fool this. I'm going to go to, I'll go to eBay. Oh, yeah, there's a problem. It's trying to redirect to Google. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
So I'm able to fool the Edge browser somewhat by what I did on this file, right? Robert, have you ever had a chance to noodle with the hosts file before?
No.
No. Okay. Well, what I want you to do though is to set up your host IP address and your server name, your server IP address and your server name, your virtual machine, in your hosts. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out now because I really don't want to confuse my browsers. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to go ahead and flush my DNS because I don't want that I don't want that lingering, right? So I'm gonna. Here's the point. I want to be able to ping standard server by name. And the test for this is ping standard server 1. Now that's
Actually, I
not,
kind of remembered. I'm sorry, I did remember configuring that. Just click.
yeah, see, now standard server is not a part of my local, it's not a part of my local DNS, and it's not a part of my internet service provider's DNS. But that's okay because I have it in hosts. So now when I do the rest of these commands, right? Now when I do the rest of these commands, I can just use the name. If I don't do that first, what happens is that this doesn't work right here. When I go to set up my RSAT Server Manager dashboard, and I go into all servers, and I want to add a server, right? So in dashboard, it says add other servers to manage. I try to do that. There's a little wizard. It's going to ask you. You want to be able to put in the name of your server. Well, you want to be able to put in the IP address, and you want it to return the name. So when you're looking, you see standard server 1 and the IP address. If all you see is the IP address, that's a bad sign. It says that the naming stuff isn't hooked up, okay? You also want to see online performance counters not started and then activated. So you want to see all that good and blue instead of error messages. And the way to get to that point, before you add your server to Server Manager, what you have to do is finish these commands. So we sent those previously. Now that your firewall commands are finished, once you have on your laptop, when you set up in the host file, your VM server name with the IP address on that VM server, then you're going to do likewise on the VM system. You're going to set up a record in the host file so you can use your laptop name in commands. I want you to skip this for now though, okay? So we're going to comment that out. Does everybody know what I mean by comment that out?
Yeah.
We're going to skip that step, right, for now. So you don't have to do that right away. But then you're going to use this PowerShell command on the virtual machine. You're going to put in set item wsman localhost trusted host value and then the RS host name. It would be nice to put my name ThinkPad1 inside the server first if I could just that easily. What is my IP address? Well, my IP address on the host is, it's 115, 192.168.1.115. So I'm going to try this very quickly just to see if I can make this happen. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to exit out of here to return to the main menu, just 4. And then I'm going to exit to the command line, 15. And then I'm going to exit, I'm going to fire up notepad.exe. And in Notepad, I'm going to open, whoops, I'm sorry. I'm going to open what? I'm going to open up Windows. Oh, follow along with me now. System 32. What am I looking for? Drivers. Yeah. Etsy. And then I don't want text files. I want all files. All files. Ah, hosts. So I can set it up just that easily. In server, I'm going to enter a new line, and I'm going to put 192.168.1.115. And what's the name that I want in there? ThinkPad1. right? Because that's the name of my host laptop. I'm going to save that. And if things are working right, what should I be able to do from this prompt?
Connect to it with the IP.
I should be able to connect to it with just the name.
With
right?
the name correction, yes, the name.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's try the IP just to make sure first that that I can actually, the firewall's gonna let me ping it, because sometimes the firewall doesn't let you ping it. So it's my firewall on my laptop is not letting me ping it. I want to change that because I want to verify that I've done the right thing. So I'm going to go into, is everybody able to follow what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go into my firewall. And I'm going to go into advanced settings. My inbound rules. And I'm going to go to file and print sharing echo request. Everybody see this? I want the IPv4 inbound, but I don't want IPv6. So I'm going to turn this on. And I'm going to turn this on. Echo request is ping. Everyone, echo request is ping. Now I'm going to try it again. Yay, look at that. Okay, so can I ping with the name? ThinkPad 1. I didn't flush my cache, but I can still ping with the name. So this is, a lot of times people look up stuff on how to make their system management and configuration easy, and then they can't get the GUI set up, and they can't get the tools to work right. And it's the simple stuff. It has to do with the DNS. It has to do with the naming system. And WinS is terrible. The old way of naming systems with IP addresses is not a good way to go. But your host file can give you a quick workaround so that now your commands will work. The one I just showed you, this command, RSAT hostname, that's ThinkPad 1. So I'm going to, on the VM server, I'm going to type set item wsman localhost clients trusted host. That's what I'm going to do here. In fact, I'm going to move this over here so you can see me, you can watch me do it. I'm over here now and I'm going to type in set dash item dash wsman. Oops, I got it backwards. wsman colon backslash localhost backslash client backslash trusted hosts, because you have to tell it that what you have is a trusted host value, and then ThinkPad 1. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
So I'm on the server. I'm on STD SRV1, my virtual machine. And now I'm using the name of my system in there after I've verified that I can use names and commands. And I'm going to hit that. And it's, and, oh, why doesn't this work in the command shell?
You have to go to PowerShell maybe?
I got to use it in PowerShell. That's exactly right. I'm not going to waste this typing. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Right click it and copy it. Now I'm going to enter PowerShell, right? I'm going to start PowerShell. Got PowerShell now. Now I'm going to right click it. There's my command again. I'm going to hit enter. And It
I got the
says
same thing.
value cannot be null. We're not putting that in angle brackets, I don't think. Let's try left angle, right angle. No, that's not it. Yeah, when I did this the first time, it worked just fine. I didn't get any red ink. Set item value cannot be null at line 1, character 1. Well, all right. We're going to finish working through the rest of these commands, and as we run into errors, we're going to work together to resolve those. But basically, after you finish running the rest of these commands and you're basically going through this point. Let me see if I can put my IP address in here. So I'll put, instead of this, I'll put 192.168.1.115. No, it doesn't like that. Yeah, I did that on this system, and it worked just fine when I did it to set it up. So I'm going to go ahead and check this out. Is everybody having the same issue? I know Raheem said he was.
I have the same error.
You have the same. Who is that?
No, me, Raheem.
Raheem. And anybody else have the same error? Is everybody else doing this?
Yeah, same.
Same. Okay. I will go ahead and research this, and I'll either send email with a corrected sequence of commands, or I did run updates, and I wonder if that changed something so that the commands no longer work with the new version of. I'll figure it out, and then we'll send you an updated listing of commands to follow. But once these are finished, you should be able to, all right, so this is one thing we should be able to do. It says get item wsman trusted hosts. Let's see if that command works. Get item trusted hosts. Oh. I think there's a get item, and then you find the index, and then you put the, yeah, there's some other thing you got to do here. Everybody type this in, and let's see what your screen shows.
I also noticed on Professor Kentop, your previous commands, you misspelled localhost. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Well, that has everything to do with it. Well, that's why it didn't work. Good catch. If you do this first one, get item WSMan localhosts. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's working for me.
Yeah. Now, what you'll see is that there's no local host that's trusted, right? So the name is trusted hosts, and there's nothing listed. But then after you issue this command, set item. So let's fix this. And
Well, I don't have anything under value.
but you would after you did this. So if you put localhost and then you put value, and then at the end you put just the name like I had, right? Value ThinkPad1. I can put another value in there just to say ThinkPad2, right? I'll put in ThinkPad2. See how the command is different now? I can say yes, no, or question mark. I'm going to say no in this case. If I answer Y for yes, it'll add it to the list, and then try get item, and try this command up here, and it should confirm that your laptop name is a trusted host of your virtual machine. And that's when you can start working with the GUIs. Now, I know this seems like a lot of trouble to go through, but once you get this process down, you can script it so that it runs automatically. Does everybody know what I mean when I say scripting it?
Like code?
Yeah, it's like a batch file, right? You run this thing, and it does all the commands for you, and then away you go. You have the GUIs to work with. So you're not trying to have to second guess this. So this is really good stuff to learn in terms of making your life simple. We're talking about a case where you're going to have to work with many machines, not just virtual machines, but on the job when you're deploying and configuring operating systems. You want to be able to use a graphical interface. I mean, you want to be able to do this. You're going to go into here, and you know, I'm managing this server, right? And so I can add a role, and I can just use the GUI to add a role. I want to make this a web server. I'm going to use this. I'm going to connect to the standard server. I'm going to click next. I want to make it a file server. What kind of file server? Let's do distributed file server replication. So I have multiple servers that have the same files and directories, and if one of them dies, then my organization doesn't stop because I have multiple copies on multiple systems, right? That's one possibility. I want to set up a web server, right? I want to set up a domain controller. I want to set up, I mean, point is you want to be able to do this. You do want to go home and have a life and have time to go date your significant other, and yeah.
Sorry, but like, is there? Could you configure a server that would funnel bandwidth to one specific computer?
Yes, you can. Yes, the short answer is it's called a quality of service setting, and you can dedicate bandwidth to one system more so than other systems. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's good to know.
Okay.
So should I press yes for the WinRM security configuration thing?
Yes. So to answer your question,
All right.
in your demonstration, you would. I'm going to stop sharing. I know some of you may need to go. Is there anybody that's willing to stay on for a couple minutes longer to walk through these, so you can see how your system comes up and you can use the GUI with it?
Yeah, I can stay.
And
I actually have an appointment I have to go to today.
okay.
I've been having trouble accessing finding the recorded Zooms, because I would like to be able to like go through this again.
Okay. Well, I will post this one in particular and the one from last Thursday in the Module 2 folder. I haven't done that yet. I have been having problems with the internet, and I may need to go to the campus to upload from there. So the reason you haven't found them yet is because I haven't posted them yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been able to do these on your virtual machine?
The last two doesn't work for me.
Okay, the last two don't.
Yeah.
But Milan, have you been able to do these on your virtual machine?
I started them, but I got the computer from IT and I want to
Oh, that's right. That's right.
get the virtual machine on that one. So I'm gonna spend time doing that today.
Do you have a, yeah, if you can hang tight for just one more minute,
Yeah, that's fine.
we can talk about how to move your virtual machine over.
Oh, I was going to like copy it, but when I tried moving it to a flash drive, I noticed it was taking a long time. So I thought maybe it would just be easier to just redo the process on the other computer.
It would be more practice and it might be quicker, yeah. Depending on how fast, some of your USB, how many of you knew that your USB ports come in two flavors? 2.0, which are older USB ports that are more compatible with older devices, and USB 3.0, there's a lightning bolt or the letters SSD next to the USB port that's 10 times faster. So Milan, it could be that when you were trying to transfer it, it was taking too long to get it. Was it taking too long to get it on the thumb drive or taking too long to get it from the thumb drive onto the new machine?
It was taking a while to get on the thumb drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does your thumb drive have other stuff on it?
No, I actually formatted it before doing that. But I don't really have I'm not really using a normal thumb drive. I'm using an
External.
SD card reader. So it's actually an SD card that I'm putting it onto.
Oh my gosh.
With that,
Yeah, that might have something to do with it.
oh, I see.
Yeah, that's a different media and the read-write speeds are pretty different. So
Okay.
yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. Unless you want to buy a fast thumb drive and a large one too, because how large is your virtual machine? It's like 36 gigs large, right? You'd have to get a 64 gig.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
But I think I should have one somewhere in the house.
One thing you may want to do before you try to set up on your Mac, I mean, you want to delete the one that's on your Mac
Oh yeah, of course.
before you start to do it on the other machine, because your license may not work if it's active on more than one system.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody else want to share their screen and then we walk through these?
Doctor, Professor Kentop, I still haven't gotten my thing going.
I'm going to stop recording, but then we can still share screens and look at stuff. Okay.
Yeah.